Welcome back. In this lesson, we are going to be making sandpaper and fuzzy monkeys with the Randomize tool. Let's get random. First off, go ahead and do File, New, General, and let's go ahead and Save As. And we can just call it Randomize. And let's just go ahead and hide Suzanne for now. We're going to come back to her. But first, I just want to show you the basics of the Randomize tool. So let's do Shift A to add a plane. And let's make it maybe like 50 millimeters. And we're going to turn this flat plane into some sandpaper. So let's go ahead and go tab into edit mode. And let's do the randomize tool. So if you go down, you can see it should probably look like this on the smooth, but just click and hold and do randomize. And if we click and drag, you can see it's kind of working on these points, but we need more geometry. We need more points. So let's just undo that. Go to edge and subdivide. And let's just subdivide by like 100. We could do more, but it's going to get pretty heavy pretty quick. So now we've got a bunch more pieces of geometry that the randomize tool can work with. So now that we've got more geometry, make sure you still have your randomize tool. And then just pull this little doodad here. Hey, there we go. We've got random geometry. And once you click and let go, we've got our parameters that you can still control. I'm just going to do a little bit, nothing too crazy, maybe like 0.5. And then you can do uniform, and that will increase the offset distance. I'm just going to leave it at 0. And then we've got the normal operator, which will align the offset direction to the normals or the faces. But I'm going to leave it random because that's the name of the tool. And then we've got random seed, which is just going to, kind of stir it up a little bit and just kind of randomize the randomness. So I'm just going to leave it at 0. 0.5 is pretty good to me. And next, what we want to do is go to our 3D print toolbox, do check all, and it's going to say non-manifold 400. And that's all of our outer edges. So go ahead and click on that. And notice the outline is selected, and we're just going to hit E to extrude down and hit Z to lock it on the Z. And I'm just going to extrude just a little bit, something like that. And now what I want you to do is hit S to scale, and we're going to hit Z because we want to lock it on the Z, and then just type 0. And that, my friends, will flatten off the bottom just like that. So you should have a nice, clean, flat bottom. And if we look underneath and hit F, that will fill it in. And there we go. We've got some sandpaper. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this sandpaper. And if we check all, we're going to have a lot of issues with this. Notice our non-manifolds disappeared. We've got intersecting faces just because that's the nature of this tool, but it should be fine. We've got non-flat faces everywhere, but that's okay. So for this one, I'm not going to try and fix everything because it's just a lot going on and it's still going to print fine. So as long as we have 0 non-manifold, you should be good to go. So let's just go to export, tell Blender where we want to save. I've got a little STLs folder here and let's export. And so now we've got the sandpaper done. Let's go ahead and hide it. And let's turn Suzanne back on. I want to show you how to add this randomize tool to objects to make essentially just to add texture or to make it look fuzzy or kind of hairy. It's a really cool effect that I've seen a long time ago, but you can also just use it, to make an item texturize. So let's go ahead and click on Suzanne, go into edit mode, and I'm going to just pop out her eyes. So just click on the eye, hit L, hover over this one, hit L, and hit P to pop it off or separate by selection. And we'll just call that new layer, call it eyes, and make sure you still have your Suzanne. So I'm going to go to object, still got Suzanne here. And we could just go to randomize here. Let's go ahead and show you what that will do. So if we did randomize, select all and randomize, it's just going to randomize those points. So it doesn't really look like hair or fuzz or texture. You might make a little bit of a cool design, but let's just undo that. And I'm going to turn the eyes off for just a second. And let's hit F to fill in our eyes here. So now we've got this Suzanne head and it's manifold, but we need to kind of subdivide it. And we could subdivide just like we did the sandpaper. But let's say if we did 10. The thing I don't like about this is that some of the, these squares are very far apart and kind of wide. And then these in here are very, very, very tight and close together. So it's going to give us a kind of a varied result. So I'm just going to undo that and show you a different way that you can do this with a modifier. So I'm just going to go into object mode and let's add a modifier onto Suzanne. And we're going to add the remesh. And it's pretty heavy and it doesn't look like much has happened. But if we zoom in here, maybe turn on wireframe, notice we've got all these little voxels. And they're it's kind of too many. It's a little too tight. So I'm going to do 0.3 and just kind of increase those sizes just a little bit. And you can get, do whatever you want, but it's going to get pretty heavy pretty quick. So once we've done that, if we go into edit mode, it just goes back to our low poly. That's because the modifier hasn't been applied. So let's go back to object mode, apply the modifier. And now when we go back to edit mode, now it is actually baked into the geometry. And the only reason I did this is so that we can randomize all this geometry. So here's a quick way to make things fuzzy. Ready? Here we go. Select all of your object. And then with your randomize tool still selected, just click and drag a little bit. Bloop. There we go. And now you can take your little box down here and, mess with this until you get your desired fuzziness. I'm going to do something like that. Looks pretty insane and crazy. And let's turn our eyes back on. There we go. And go back to object mode. And there we go. We've got a fuzzy monkey here that looks pretty amazing. And now let's just go click our eyes, go into edit mode, select all, hit F to fill it. I'm just making these manifold and just shift click on the head, Control plus. And now this is all one mesh. The eyes will be printed normally and the head of the monkey will be fuzzy. So let's call this, maybe call it Fuzzy Suzanne. And the eyes, we can just shift click and drag it into there. So now it's inside and parented to the Suzanne head. And let's go ahead, click our Suzanne and make sure to save first because we've made so much geometry that when we do check all, it's going to take quite a second. So go ahead and save and then do check all. And sometimes while doing this, Blender will say not responding up at the top, but don't worry, it's just thinking. So give it a few minutes before you quit or give up on it because it is doing a lot of calculations here. There it goes. Okay. So mine only took about 10 seconds. And now we've got intersecting faces, non-flat faces, all this nasty geometry. But for this, that's just kind of the nature of the hairy kind of fuzzy effect. So as long as you have 0 non-manifold edges, you're good to go. So let's just go ahead and make sure you have your Fuzzy Suzanne. We've still got our folder selected here and we'll just hit export. And there we go. So now we've gotten our sandpaper and our monkey all together looking cool. I'm just going to turn off our overlays and there we go. Just like that. You can do this to any object to instantly add texture or to randomize your geometry. So for this one, I'm just going to do the sandpaper since this is a tools lesson. So let's just bring in our sandpaper and it is manifold. Perfect. And for this one, we may need to have a higher resolution. So I'm going to do 0.1 and let's just do straight up that and slice it up. And there we go. So now we've got this little mountain range of geometry that will 3D print just like that. Looks pretty cool and will only take about an hour. So let's go ahead and print that thing.